Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi here, back with another Market Watch episode. We have a ton of different cards that we're going to take a look at today for a variety of different reasons. Now with some, we're taking a look at some early buyouts related to Ghosts from the Past, some of them being cards in the set targeted for early buyouts already, and others being complementary pieces to the new support. We're also going to take a look at some cards from archetypes that will be getting support in the near future, as well as a few older cards that are popping up in the meta unexpectedly. We do have quite a few cards that I want to talk about today, so let's jump right into it. To kick things off, let's take a look at Time Thief Adjuster, a brand new Time Thief card out of Ghost from the Past. So in the Ghost from the Past set, I guess technically there are no short prints, but the last card of each pack is chosen from its own smaller pool, while the first 4 cards can be selected from a much larger pool. So therefore it can be a little bit harder to pull that specific card that you're looking for if it's located in the last slot, since you only have one shot at it per pack as opposed to the 4. Now, as a result, we're getting people identifying key cards out of that last slot as early buyout targets because they are theoretically harder to pull and have greater potential to increase in price in the future. The first card here is Time Thief Adjuster, which was only $2 to $3 on release, has gone as high as $10, but is currently settling at around the $7 market price. It's a really cool piece for Time Thieves, summoning itself out of your hand and also helping to get a key Time Thief card into the graveyard. Now, Time Thieves are, in my opinion, a really cool archetype that I think you should make sure that you have access to. They can do some really cool things either as an engine or as a pure deck. Time Thieves have always had potential. I think that the most play we've seen from them though is back in Luna Lights before Tiger was banned, but with cards like Adjuster and then the ability to mesh well with other engines such as the Raid Raptors or Rockets, we might see a meta come up sometime in the future where Time Thieves can actually be a really potent threat. I think that if you can grab your copies of Adjuster for around $5 each, that's a really solid price for you to pick them up at and hold on to because the engine does have so much upwards potential. The next card out of Ghost from the Past is Nesh Shaddoll Genius, one of the new main deck Shaddoll monsters. This card feels kind of okay if it's flipped face up. You get to make one of your Shaddoll monsters unaffected by monster effects. Kinda whatever, maybe it's good to protect Winda or something like that. Its second effect though lets you target a monster on the field and prevent either player from activating effects with that monster's name for the rest of the turn. I think that situationally, this could be a really useful card to maybe make your opponent burn their negate on this card if it's dumped with like a Shaddoll Fusion, or maybe even chain blocking for this card to ensure that you can negate something like an Appaloosa. Now admittedly, from all the lists that I've seen, this card is just a one-of in the new Shaddoll builds. However, Shaddoll Invoked has established itself as one of the top few decks of the format, with a ton of people playing it and managing to compete with decks like Dragon Link, Eldritch, and Zodiac. In addition, Genius is one of those cards that can only be located in the last slot of these packs, so it is a bit harder to pull than other cards. Because of this meta relevance and perceived scarcity, people are viewing Shaddoll Genius as a one-of that people will need to pick up in order to play the Shaddoll deck, which has caused its price to shoot way up from $3 on release to a peak of $15 before now settling back down to the $12 mark. If you want to play Shaddolls, this is probably something that you're just going to have to pay up for, though as just a one-of, this card should cool off a little bit more to around the $7 to $8 mark. Next up is a pretty weird one. We have the Herratic Dragon of Gebeb. So the cause for this one is pretty obvious. We got a few cool new Herratic cards in Ghost from the Past, which helps to improve the consistency of the deck. Now, from what a couple of my friends have told me, there's some sort of Herratic FTK running around, and while it did exist before, I believe the new cards just made it a bit more consistent to pull off. I'm not 100% familiar with this. I don't really enjoy FTKs. It's kind of whatever. Either way, it probably isn't going to be super meta relevant or anything like that. Now apparently, one of the cards that the FTK can use is Gebeb, a level 4 Herratic monster, which is a bit different because I think most of the main deck cards are level 5 or level 6. This card lets you summon a Herratic normal monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard when it's tributed, so predictably it's really useful for helping to get out the level 8 Herratic seal onto the field very easily. Anyways, this card does just have one printing from way back in Galactic Overload, which was quite a few years ago. This is just another one of those cards that has managed to slip through the cracks for a few years without a reprint, and when there's finally some sort of very small amount of potential for it to be useful, it gets targeted for a buyout immediately, regardless of whether or not it's going to be meta relevant. I think that at one point a couple days ago, this card was up at $25, but now it's down to $15, and even then, I think you try to offload this card as quickly as possible. It's another hype card that's probably going to get reprinted in an OTS pack, and it will become a dollar card once again. Another one that was probably really easy to see coming, we have Dragoonity Arma Mistletoe. So obviously with all the new Dragoonity cards that we were supposed to get in a structure deck, but got in Ghost from the Past instead, Dragoonity's actually got a really significant boost. I saw a couple of really cool combos where you really just need Remus and then any other card to discard for Dragon Ravine, and you're able to put together some pretty decent boards. Anyways, Arma Mistletoe is a really useful Dragoonity card. It's an extra extender that you can easily summon out by sending a Dragoonity monster from your field to the graveyard, and then on summon you get to equip a Dragoonity monster to this card from your graveyard. So that could be a Phalanx that you can then summon out, or another monster that you can summon out with the graveyard effect of Dragoonity Glow. Several really cool interactions that you can go through with this card, so even though it's probably not something that you'll want to run at 3, you're definitely going to want to run at least 1. Anyways, this card does unfortunately just have one super rare printing from an old Dragoonity structure deck, which was literally released like a full 10 years ago. It's really unfortunate here that the Dragoonity cards were mixed into a set instead of just printing the whole structure deck. If it were a whole structure deck, I feel like we would have definitely seen Arma Mistletoe very conveniently reprinted in there. Anyways, this card is now up at $10 a piece, which is quite a bit for a one of, just because this card is pretty old. I believe there is quite a bit of hype for Dragoonities now as well, with Remus at the top of Ghost from the Past in terms of price outside of those ghost rares, and Dragoonities are also a really popular archetype with a lot of the player base. Hopefully this is another piece that's going to be reprinted in the next OTS tournament pack. Alright, so next up we're taking a look at a couple of different trap cards. So these cards were featured in an Eldritch deck that was put together by Pack. Looks really cool. I believe Tom posted a deck profile to the channel yesterday. Also, do make sure that you guys check out Pack's channel as well, where he breaks down the deck even further. A lot of great information between those couple of videos. Anyways, Broken Line is a card that Pack chose to include in his main deck as a 3-of, as a very strategic Omni-Negate counter trap card, allowing you to negate a spell, trap, or monster effect at no cost that is activated in the same column as this card. Now, even though it's a counter trap, it's still a potentially useful card when you're going second, because you can just line it up with a card that you want to negate and then negate it during your opponent's turn when they try to negate your card, or you can line it up with an extra deck monster zone if you can predict where your opponent is going to be playing their cards. Anyways, so this card does just have 2 printings available. Both of them are ultra rares, one from Circuit Break and then its Megatin reprint. I think that most of the time since this card's released, it was only like $1 or so at most, but we've actually seen this card shoot way up to the $8 mark that it's currently at. Definitely something that you'll want to dig out of your bulk if you've overlooked this card in the past. I know I definitely have a few copies of this card sitting around somewhere. Now, admittedly, this card can be difficult to use correctly, but I think it's still really cool, and I think we are going to see a ton of people try and use this card moving forward with varying amounts of success. I think it is one of those cards that you'll have to be mindful of moving forward, kind of like playing around that infinite impermanence column. But of course, if everyone is aware of it and is able to play around it, then the card does become a little bit less powerful. Regardless, I see this card maintaining a price point somewhere between $5 and $10, assuming that it doesn't get reprinted, depending on just how many people try to abuse this card and how much success they actually see. The other trap card from Pack's profile that we're going to take a look at here is Witch's Strike. This is a card that Pack featured in his side deck as a 3-of. I remember when this card first came out, I thought it was kind of crazy. It never really ended up seeing any meta play. It lets you destroy all cards in your opponent's hand and on their field when they negate your normal or special summon, or negate your card effect. Obviously, this can be really devastating if you manage to resolve it, as it basically forces your opponent into a top decking situation, but in the past, it's a bit too situational when this card needs to be drawn. Now, however, with all of the different combo decks running around that are trying to prevent you from playing the game, I can definitely see how this card could be devastating. Also, do keep in mind that it's a trap card, right? Cards like Solemn Strike, Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, and Appaloosa can't negate this card, so even if you were to search this card with something like Trap Trick, maybe your opponent is forced into a situation where they have to let you play because otherwise you'll blow up all of their stuff. Now, this card does have 2 printings available, the original Secret Rares from Savage Strike, which are all the way up at $18 a piece, and then the Ultra Rares from the 2020 Megatins, which I feel like were definitely overlooked. Those ones are like $6 or so each now. They were down at $1 or $2 before. Overall, I do think that this card is a really cool tech. I'm kind of glad that it's good now because it always had a lot of potential to be a really strong blowout card. It's just that people could never really make it work. Obviously, with both this card and Broken Line, these are really new techs that are just making an appearance in the meta for the first time now. So naturally, there's a lot of hype surrounding them. We're gonna have to wait and see if they really are just one-hit wonders or if they're going to stick around for formats to come. Okay, so next up we have two cards that we're looking at that are basically the same. We have the Agent of Creation Venus and Mystical Shineball. In this case, we're specifically looking at the super rare versions of each, which came from Legendary Collection Yugi's World. Each of these cards is going to cost you about $10 each. Actually, I think that with Shineball, there's only the one listing at $10 before it jumps up to like $20 a copy or something like that. So we'll see if that copy actually manages to move. Now, just a day or two ago, we had confirmed that we're getting a new agent structure deck in August of this year in the OCG, so we should be getting it here in the TCG by the end of this year. This is literally all that we know about it, but agents were a really popular deck about a decade ago, and the deck still has some really cool cards. They have an easy to summon boss monster in Master Hyperion, a Stratos in Earth, and then Venus and Shineball for some really interesting link plays. Now, both of these cards do have several common printings available, so there are those budget alternatives if you need them. I do believe they were reprinted in an OTS pack as a common when these cards were seeing play in World Chalice a couple of years ago, but it's the holo versions specifically that have jumped up in price pretty soon after the news was revealed. Naturally, people want to bling out their decks, so they buy out the higher rarity versions of these cards, even though the cards will 99% be reprinted in the structure deck itself. Technically, there is a higher rarity of Shineball than the Super. I believe it's a battle pack prize card as like a Starfoil, something like that, but that's going to cost you like $50 each. They're ridiculously hard to find, so realistically, if you want to bling out the strategies, you're going to be playing the Supers. I personally think that they look nicer anyways. It's impossible to say much else here without seeing the actual new support cards, which we probably won't get to take a look at for a while, so just be sure to scoop up these cards if you can find them at a good price. Alright, the last card I want to talk about briefly here is the Dark Magicians. Now, this is a fusion monster for the Dark Magician deck from out of Legendary Duelist Magical Hero. It's an amazing support card for one of the most iconic monsters in the entire game. Now, for quite a while, this card was pretty affordable. It was down at around the $20 to $30 mark, which I thought was kind of reasonable. However, within the last week or so, we've actually seen this card bought out to the $100 mark before falling back down to its current market price of about $80 a piece. Now, to an extent, I do understand it. This is a really good card in an iconic deck, and it's the sort of thing that a lot of more casual fans of the anime will want to own. Maybe they're not paying as much attention to reprint schedules or whether or not this card is going to fall in price within the near future, so they just go ahead and buy it. However, I definitely think that this is a horrible target to try to intentionally buy out, and if I owned this card, I would definitely be looking to offload them as soon as possible. The reason is that we should be getting a pretty big announcement for Legendary Duelist Season 3 sometime in late 2021, and that is going to bring with it several really big reprints, cards like Magician's Souls, Malicious Bane, and A Dusted Gold. The Dark Magicians also happens to fall within the group of cards that we are expecting to see reprinted, and if the past couple of Legendary Duelist Season sets are anything to follow along with, the reprint of this card should also be a secret rare, so a higher rarity version technically than the original. We've already seen similar price action with cards like Lieb, Blue Eyes Chaos Dragon, and Garden Rose Maiden, where they were really expensive before these sets came out, the secret rare reprint comes out, and then they subsequently fall in price. So there's no reason to suspect that the set contents and the way that this set will affect the prices of these cards is going to be any different this time around. Okay guys, that is it for today's Market Watch. There was a lot of stuff to talk about today. We didn't even really get a chance to talk about everything I wanted to cover, so we're gonna have to talk about the other cards another time. It's really cool that even though we're right in the middle of the format, with meta decks pretty firmly established, we're still seeing people like Pack find ways to innovate and bring changes to the game constantly. And then of course it always helps that we're getting new support constantly released, even if it is a bit delayed because it's over in the OCG. That's always bringing some excitement to the game for those older players as well. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure that you hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about in today's Market Watch, or let me know about what other cards are trending on the market so I can cover them in a future episode. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.